Today, on Rise Up, Breaking the Chains of Tyranny, Ailia Hallal and Dr. Irfan Alamgir expose the brutal realities of nations shackled by extremist, so-called Islamic regimes. What's the cost of control, and how do we dismantle it? Revolution against oppression. Special Correspondent James Pollard uncovers the extremist Nigerian government's disregard for the people. The people are waking up. What's next in the fight for freedom? Journey to Serenity. Join us for our first meditation session, led by our dear sister Veronica, as she guides you on a path to peace and spiritual balance. Faith under fire. Believers in extremist so-called Islamic states are standing up against governments that oppress them in the name of religion. Yasmine Al Al-Mahdi takes us inside the rebellion against hypocrisy and tyranny in the name of faith. A rebellion written in Scripture. Throughout history, rulers have stood against the divine messengers. We delve into the ancient scriptures that reveal how power-hungry leaders have resisted God's will, and how history is repeating itself. I found the Mahdi. Freedom in Defiance. Korddad Al Al-Mahdi shares his inspiring journey of discovering the Mahdi while fighting for the freedom to follow the true path. The struggle for religious freedom in extremist states is a battle for the soul, one that's far from over. This is Rise Up.
Hello and peace be upon everyone tuning in right now to our show Rise Up. I'm Ailia Hallal.
And I'm Irfan Alamgir.
And we're very excited to jump in today with our new topic for the day. And we are very honored to be doing that on this very blessed channel, a channel
Yes.
that we broadcast to great parts of the world, such as Africa and Europe. And we're also live streaming it right now on our social media platforms.
Exactly.
We're bringing forward the message of the riser of the family of Muhammad. It is the reason that we say we rise up every morning, because we have that motivation, that dedication for a goal that has come from him.
Yes.
And essentially from God from the beginning of time is what we believe, correct?
Exactly, Ali. And I think the name is a very appropriate name. It is called Rise Up because there is a lot of injustice and oppression in the world. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of suffering, and it need not be that way. At the heart of this, or the root cause of all of the problems that we see before our eyes today, we believe it's because God is not at the helm in terms of guiding and leading humanity. And when I say God, I mean a man who is appointed by God, who is chosen by God for the best interests of the people of the world, and not just a select few who are unfortunately the cause of the suffering because of the greed and selfishness of a select few, a few elites. The majority suffer, and this is something that we want to highlight, and we want to encourage people to rise up and unite against this injustice.
Exactly. There is no possible way to rectify the sins of the past or to move forward with prosperity and to flourish as a human species unless we put a certain creed at the forefront. And that is the creed of Imam Mahdi, the creed of the riser of the family of Muhammad, Abdullah Hashim Abu as-Sadiq. And that creed is humanity first. Now, as simple and as fundamental as you might think that this creed is, I highly doubt that anyone can really say that they can find it anywhere in this day and age. And this is a very great problem that we are facing. The lack of following this ideology or this principle, the fact that people are not doing so, the fact that they are neglecting it and doing the complete opposite has led to very terrible consequences that we're seeing in every sphere of life.
Exactly, Ali. And I think with our focus now shifting on really highlighting the problems on the ground that the everyday man experiences, the struggle for life, you know, in the West, we are in some ways more privileged than in countries in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, where extreme poverty and deprivation causes so much unnecessary morbidity and mortality in terms of things that are easily curable. people are dying because they don't have enough clean drinking water. And this is something we in the West take for granted.
Yes.
But the problems in Africa that exist that we really, really wanted to hone into for the rest of this episode and God willing in future episodes, I hope they will galvanize the people to really develop that passion to stand up against the oppressor and to unite. I mean, at the end of the day, the poor make up the majority. And if the majority unite together on one common purpose under the guidance of God,
exactly,
and a man appointed by him, then and only then can we create the change that is so necessary at this time. And it's possible because the man from God, Abu as-Sadiq, the second Mahdi, is here, the Qa'im, the riser of the family of Muhammad, who was the inspiration for the naming of the show, is in our midst, and he is calling the people to come and give him that support so he can create the change that we all want to see.
Exactly, and it's a very exciting time. It's a very thrilling time because we're not talking about a situation where we are hoping to develop a change. We're talking about a promise of God. We're talking about a time where God has promised that the prophecy will be fulfilled, that the meek and the broken and the poor in the land will be empowered. Why? Just like you said, Irfan, because why wouldn't we be if God has sent his own spirit, his own light in this messenger from himself, in the man who is uniting the people, who has not come for a single people, but in fact for all people. And this individual, if we understand, if we can actually connect with the idea that rulership is for God alone, that the authority belongs to God alone. And this is something that we are we repeat quite a bit because it's so critical. It's so critical to being a true human being, because we believe a true human being should never submit to a human being. A human being is so sacred. God has created the human being to be so sacred that it is not becoming for a human to bow down to its fellow man. In fact, a human being should only bow down to God and the Spirit of God that he sends down in his messenger. And this is why we are talking today about persecution. We're talking today about the way that the world is run in this day and age by those authoritarian governments, by those tyrannical governments, by the pharaohs who are sitting on the seats of power.
Right.
And they are wearing the robes of God himself and saying to the people, you must obey me. And I think enough is enough. We have seen enough times now in enough places that this is not the way things should be. And we are specifically talking right now about, for example, governments in the Middle East who claim to be Islamic, but are the furthest thing from Islam.
Exactly, Ali. And I think you mentioned Pharaoh. And as soon as you said that, you said it's so important to emphasize why a man from God. I mean, Africa, the majority of people living in the continent of Africa subscribe to either Islam, the religion of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, or Christianity, the religion of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. So in a country like that, and both of these religions agree upon the figure of Moses,
absolutely,
who is common to both religions, as a man who was sent by God. And it needed a Moses to come into, for example, the land of Egypt, where at the time the Pharaoh was sitting on the throne and the children of Israel were in enslavement and being brutally tortured and oppressed for many, many years, hundreds of years.
Yes.
And it was only when Moses came, the man appointed by God, that the people were able to unite around him and finally find their way to freedom. And as is the case today, Abu Sadiq is the man from God. He has arrived. He is Egyptian. He is the promised Egyptian. And Egypt is, of course, one of the glorious civilizations of the great African continent, the rich African continent that has been plundered and looted for far too long. This goes, beyond the last decade. It goes beyond the last century. It goes into colonial times.
My goodness.
And now, as Ailia said, enough is enough.
Yes. We are people who are very proud of the fact that we follow a man that has shown us that it is not a privilege to be treated humanely. It is a right. It is a God-given right for the person, for the individual to have their human rights given to them. And it is a duty for the individual to demand those human rights and to establish for the coming generation a land and a place where people are given their rights and where they are allowed to live as a people of God, where we are allowed to worship God as He is meant to be worshipped, by allowing ourselves the right to worship Him and by recognizing Him as that ultimate and absolute authority over all creation. So this is not something that can happen by simply living a calm life and hoping for the best. This is something that happens first from within. We have to open up to that understanding. We have to look for God. We have to look for His messenger. And we have to understand what it means to obey and submit God completely and in the most beautiful way. Now, in this episode, we're hoping to highlight some of the injustices that we're seeing right now in Africa and in the Middle East. We're hoping to delve into why it happened that mankind has reached this place, why it happened that we're suffering in this way, and what is the ultimate solution. So we have a very interesting piece that was done recently by our dear brother James Pollard. He is our special correspondent who goes into investigative journalism, and he did an interesting piece on Nigeria and the state that it is in today. Let's go ahead and take a look at what James found.
In the beating heart of Africa, Nigeria has become notorious for corruption and illicit dealings, despite many of the elite rulers and religious scholars proclaiming faith in the one true absolute God, a nation that is racked by destitution and abject suffering. This is despite Minister Dele Alake of Nigeria government declaring solid mineral resources alone, such as gold, to be worth $750 billion in 2024. The nation ranks in the top 10 of all oil wealth nations, with over $60 billion generated in 2023, but with malpractice and production levels having slumped by nearly half. Shockingly, this does not stop all oil barons like Mike Adneguga siphoning off these assets, accumulating a net worth of $6.7 billion, whilst 2/3 of Nigerians alone, some 82.9 million, live on less than $1 a day. No wonder crime and suffering is so high. During the first half of 2022, almost 6,000 people were killed by extremist jihadists, kidnappers, bandits, and even the Nigerian army. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned his people, if the leadership is entrusted to those unfit for it, expect the hour. With so much corruption and division, this has created a vacuum of true leadership and a breeding ground for a chaotic mix of factions and extremist groups, and terror cells seeking to gain power and status by entering into the political and religious sphere. Worse still, they have expanded to spread their poison and influence to neighbouring countries. The state government is officially secular, yet since 1999, one of the governors, Ahmed, pushed successfully for 12 states to adopt Sharia law, such as Kano and Kebbi. This paved the way for the election of Obasanjo as president, who in 1999 pushed forward to demand more extreme Sharia law. This gave leverage for these affiliates to move into business and work through politics alongside the despotic sheikhs to allow Boko Haram to spread like a virus in the north, leading to an uprising against the Nigerian state from within. Many of these famous sheikhs were trained in Medina, Saudi Arabia, such as Jafar Adam, with predominantly Salafist tendencies. It is behind this backdrop that the resentment and hatred for other sects of Islam, including the Sufi and Shia Muslims, have festered and led to public retribution, as well as even national army crackdowns in Nigeria. Many of these so-called sheikhs of Islam have forged strong connections to political parties defying God's universal law. A former commander general of Nigeria's army heading up the morality police, Hizbah, in Kano State. His forces have been accused of various abusive crackdowns and raids on social media influencers. He has even been called out for censoring of preaching by rival Islamic and Christian factions. Another prominent Muslim, Salafi cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, has been implicated in a dark, sedacious plot. The Mufti at the Central Mosque in Kaduna State, trained in Saudi Arabia, has become a middleman for kidnap and ransom deals. The crisis saw more than 800 students seized in recent months. Not only has he been seen to negotiate with the bandits face to face, he has come to claim there should be a blanket amnesty for the criminals. If the country could pardon coup plotters who committed treasonable offences in the era of military administration, the bandits can as well enjoy similar forgiveness, even better under democratic rule, he said. This is clarified by a so-called scholar of Islam, a religion that declares only God has the right to rule through his chosen divine successor, and that man-made systems of governance are false. O Allah, owner of sovereignty, you give sovereignty to whom you will, and you take sovereignty away from whom you will. Kidnapping children from school is a lesser evil because in the end you can negotiate, and now bandits are very careful about human lives. Before, the mission of the bandits was to go into a town, ransack it and kill the people, said Ahmed, to justify their actions. Nigerian activists and skeptics alike challenge Gumi's principles and goals, as other politicians and religious leaders acting as mediators in militant cases profited directly from such negotiations. This was not the only inflammatory stance he took. In a viral video, Sheikh Gumi remarked how non-Muslim Nigerian soldiers were responsible for national insecurity. This was an indirect assault on Christians and their principles, which he knew as a public figure would lead to vigilantism and public retaliation. Likewise, as a so-called righteous sheikh, does he deny Jesus, peace be upon him, who was a prophet and true Muslim who submitted to the will of God, not his own will, the true etymology of the word? As Jesus said, "For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but to do the will of him who sent me." The backlash from such vile and putrid language, the furthest from true Islam and God, and the actions from these evil scholars is sadly very clear. This has led to a backlash from the misguided public, and worse still, a justification from deviant commanders in the Nigerian army and political tyrants to sanction murder and rape of good, honest Christians. It also promotes a climate where terror cells can proliferate and a negative spiral of alienation and killings across all sects of all religions. The combined forces of the government, protected Islamic jihadists, and the country's security forces are directly accountable for hacking to death in 2023 of no fewer than 8,222 defenseless Christians, covering a period of 13 months, from a report signed by the director of Inter-Society. The killings were carried out by a range of factions, including jihadists, Fulani, herdsmen, who were responsible for at least 5,000 Christian deaths, Boko Haram and their affiliates with 500 deaths, jihadist Fulani with 1,600 deaths, and Islamic-inspired security forces with 1,000 Christian deaths. Nigeria has become the second deadliest genocide country in the world, accounting for more than 150,000 religious-motivated defenseless civilian deaths since 2009. It is now abundantly clear the government, political, police and military stance is not in any sense secular, but is in fact biased and rigged with affiliations to Saudi Arabia and Wahhabism. The police have been accused of illegal detention, extortion and sexual abuse, whilst the Nigerian army, with a long history of Saudi influence, has been implicated in Salafi-style assaults against Shia and Sufi sects. The actual origins, though, go way back to at least 1955, when an Islamic scholar from Zamfara state, the father of the same Sheikh Gumi spreading Baal today, Abu Bakr Gumi, travelled to Mecca, whose rhetoric and knowledge of the Hadith impressed the king of Saud. He returned to teach Arabic and so-called Islamic purity in Kano state, a propaganda mission to translate the Arabic Quran into Hausa language, and it did not take him long to declare the Sufi orders of the north to be polluted with bid'ah and innovation, facilitating severe and villainous reprisals. With Saudi funding and support, this led to a network being created of his students to build political coalitions, and his successor Sheikh Idris taking control of the Isla movement, a precursor to Boko Haram. The members of Isla became some of the most revered Islamic sheikhs across Nigeria, even holding high ranks in the army. No wonder why we see so many army assaults on the Shia and Sunnah. Members of the movement also would sit on the Democratic Council, completely and diametrically opposed to the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. Did Prophet Muhammad not warn his followers they should not help the tyrannical and oppressive governments who elect their own leaders with the stroke of a pen? The rulers after me are not guided by my guidance. Anyone who believes in their lies and helps them in their oppression is not from me, and I am not from them. They will not come to me at my pond. Prophet Muhammad also warned there will come a time when the rulers over you will be from the worst of the people. So if we live in that time, we should not be a corporal, policeman, tax collector, or responsible over the finance. So this is a heavy matter that reveals the clerics of Islam today in Nigeria and beyond are supporting and acting as traitors to the true religion of God. They are also accountable for the religious bigotry and hatred that has led to innocent women and children being mutilated and living in fear for their lives every day. Whilst the neglect and incompetence and selling out to Western elites has led to the ongoing poverty and ignorance, denying people access to decent education and welfare. The truth is today sealed through the riser Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, named in the Holy Will as Abdullah. Under Abdullah, Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, the bearer and advocate of the seventh and final complete covenant, humanity is put first. The illusion of democracy and fake Islam has been shattered, so the hour is upon us, and the call is for the good people of Nigeria and Africa to come back to the supremacy of God and the universal call of Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, the riser of truth, where all different tribes, nations and creeds that profess faith in the one true absolute God are welcome to live in the divine just state. Peace and harmony without prejudice will prevail, and people will be judged by their own books and laws, not by those made by mankind. So that those who were forced to steal to feed their families, who accept this call, will be declared innocent of their crimes, which will be returned to those that force them to sin.
That was our brother James speaking on the current state of Nigeria and what our brothers and sisters in Nigeria are undergoing at the moment due to a very extremist regime that is currently taking precedence there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with James's investigative skills as a journalist, we are going to delve in future episodes as well into highlighting specific issues within specific African as well as European countries.
Yes.
With the goal of highlighting the extreme level of corruption and extreme level of oppression, injustice, and the influence of foreign powers and the role that they play in creating political instability in these countries for their own benefit. And so I really look forward to going into sort of future episodes as well. But now the focus is on Nigeria.
Yes.
Nigeria is a country that has approximately, according to latest kind of figures, about 55% Muslim and 45% Christian. So it is a religious country. It is a country that is based on these two monotheistic religions of Islam and Christianity. But unfortunately, at the highest level, the elites are the furthest away from the teachings of Jesus Christ and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. And you've seen world leaders in videos talking about the corruption of Nigeria. It is there's a famous video circulating. It's several years ago now of David Cameron, and he's with some other world leaders, and he says Nigeria and Afghanistan are by far the two most corrupt nations on the face of the earth. Of course, this is talking about the policymakers, the people at the top, the leaders of the country. And Trump has also in Washington said that Nigeria has one of the worst reputations for corruption at a governmental level. And yet, organizations such as the IMF and other lenders are pumping billions and billions of dollars into the country, knowing that it is being grossly misappropriated. So Nigeria, I have some statistics here that I wanted to share, and I think the first thing that comes into when you're reading these stats is that the country is extremely rich. Mm-hmm. Nigeria has a lot of natural resource wealth potential, but that money never sees the people. It is kept at the highest level of the at the top.
Pyramid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's people at the top that siphon away all the wealth, and little bits trickle down occasionally to the people if they're lucky. So, just a few statistics to put things into perspective. The Nigerian government was reported to have lost almost $500 billion, that's 500 billion US dollars, to corruption between 1960 and 2000. And that's according to the World Bank. In 2014, the former Nigerian president, and his name is Goodluck Jonathan, stated that an estimated 250,000 barrels of oil were being stolen on a daily basis.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
Costing the country, Ailia, $1 billion US dollars a month in revenue. And
wow.
And it's worse now than it is in the administration because he was the former president.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, reported that over $217 billion was stolen from the Nigerian treasury between 1960 and 2005. The Global Financial Integrity estimated that Nigeria lost over $157 billion to illicit financial flows between 2003 and 2012, mainly through corruption and money laundering.
The corruption is rampant, clearly. It's a lot. Like, the numbers are very, very high, and it's quite baffling that this is the situation there at the moment.
Right. I mean, according to some of these numbers, and this is just, as we say, as an expression in English, the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. Now, these numbers suggest that Nigeria, which has one of the highest percentage of people living in extreme poverty than anywhere else in the world, should be actually some of the most affluent people in the world. And surely this should infuriate the people of Nigeria. Absolutely.
I mean, we are infuriated hearing that. Imagine being from that land and going through that oppression firsthand. Right? Just hearing it is infuriating.
It is. And if there's not a reaction to this, if the people are not inspired to stand up, to rise up and confront these people who are literally robbing them while they sleep in the night, then things are going to get worse. And here is a statistic from PricewaterhouseCoopers report, which states that corruption could cost Nigeria up to 37, nearly 40% of its GDP by 2030 if it is not addressed effectively. Imagine 40% of the country's wealth production, its gross domestic product, is going to be going by 2030. It's not too far away now. We're in 2024. In 6 years' time, almost half of your wealth production is going to be lost due to corruption. The wealth that could be used to create schools, hospitals, law enforcement, clean water, etc.,
house the homeless, and get medical aid for those who need it. And it's very sickening to know that this is how the people are having to live. They're being subjected to this kind of treatment by those who are so extremely greedy that they just want to fill their pockets with what they don't even need. The wealth that they could not even use in a single lifetime, and they're still getting more of it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and instead of the West trying to play the role of the hero, there's a famous book that was written maybe about 10, 15 years ago. It was called The White Man's Burden. And in it, the author demonstrates how the West, instead of helping the Nigerians to deal with these corrupt leaders who are stealing their wealth, they are giving them incentives, they are giving them this financial aid that actually further cripples their economy. They don't want to pump the money into education and into these colleges where people come with skills, where they can find jobs and improve the economy. They want to give the money, right? They want to give the rice, the wheat, the milk, all these other products that they give in aid, and it further kind of cripples the economy, and then it actually suits the people in the West, and it's quite a nefarious game that is being played. So that's something else to consider. Now, Ailia, Nigeria has the highest number of people in the world living in extreme poverty. Over 40% of its population, 40%, live below the poverty line according to the World Bank. right? This is an abomination. When you hear the numbers that we have just spoken about, 500 billion, hundreds of billions,
40%,
250,000 oil barrels
per day.
It is staggering that the country with such wealth and such blessing in terms of the natural resources that they have, that the people are not seeing any benefit from it. It really is infuriating.
No, it's another signal of the times we're living in at the moment. This is not the way God intends for people to live, and for the people to even allow that they're being subjected to this. We encourage that you realize and open up to the idea that we believe in, that this is not the way life should be, and that it is actually within the hands of the people to change that. And it starts from a fundamental belief from within. Because this kind of lifestyle that we are reading about, we are reading statistics, we are reading the bigger picture here. But there are people with names, with children who have names, with elderly parents who are people with a whole lifetime of experiences, human beings who are suffering. This is just a bit of a perspective, a glimpse into what is actually happening, a very, very dark reality that should not be happening right now. And we're trying to highlight that and bring that out and say that let's basically expose it. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. Let's stop looking away from it. It's so easy to look away from the problem. It takes a lot of bravery and courage to actually look at it and take the pain of it and try and find a solution.
Right. And the solution has come in the form of the Mahdi. The Mahdi who carries the spiritual legacy of Jesus Christ for the Christians. In fact, Abu as-Sadiq, the Mahdi, the Qa'im, the riser of the family of Muhammad, has said that I am a messenger to the Christians from Jesus Christ, and I am a messenger from Muhammad to the Muslims, and he is the culmination of all the monotheistic faiths, savior figure who has come in this time. And when he highlights the injustices that we see in the world today, for example, clean drinking water. Did you know 60% of Nigerians don't have access to the basic fundamental human right of having clean water to drink? They drink water, it causes dysentery, it causes cholera, it causes little children to die in their beds while their parents have nowhere to go. Imagine, if this was happening in a country like the West, which has improved, which has better standards of education, which has better opportunities and making people aware, they would rise up and they would confront the government and demand that at least we should have clean water coming out of our taps.
Exactly.
This is such a fundamental right, and the 60% in Nigeria don't have access to it. That's the majority of the population, and in fact the water is killing people. And the source of this water that kills, is actually the leaders who are sitting in the positions of power in your country. They are the ones polluting the water and contaminating it. And as soon as they are taken off the throne and God's appointed messenger is sitting on the throne, you will see that suddenly the best water in the world will be flowing through your taps in Nigeria, and not only Nigeria, in every country in the world. So it's in our best interests. We have suffered long enough under these tyrannical rulers who feed on us relentlessly like mosquitoes, and there's no filling their belly. They have an insatiable appetite to keep feeding and feeding, and they're not going to stop. They haven't stopped 30 years ago. Exactly. And in fact, all the stats are telling us they're going to feed more. The time for action is now. Recognize, look, open the books of your religious figures and see what they said in their narrations about the coming of a man from God. Just like Moses came to deliver the children of Israel, in this time God has sent another great man from the land of Egypt to come and deliver the people of Africa. His name is Abdullah Hashim Abu as-Sadiq, the riser from the family of Muhammad. He was spoken of by Jesus Christ, by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and he is here now, and he is calling the people to freedom. Will you stand up? Will you rise up and support him and find salvation?
Very well said. I think that it goes without saying that this is the time to cause change. Why? Because God is actually actively calling the people to rise up. There's a difference now. It's not like the people are subjected to persecution, and we are saying rise up and face persecution, because we all know that standing up for change leads to, unfortunately, dire consequences. And this is why people fear change. This is why people fear speaking out. But when God is by your side, and when his messenger is saying that he is here to support you, then there is a difference. And as we said earlier, it starts from within. The change begins from the inner. The individual has to first recognize who their true king is, who their true Lord is.
Right.
And once that inner spiritual sense is satisfied by God and by the messenger of God, then there is so much that can be accomplished. But it cannot start unless we open our eyes to what is true, which is that the people have to wake up to God's spirit on earth today.
Right.
Once that takes place, there's nothing that we cannot do as a godly people. But it starts from the individual, and it seeps into the society, and that is how we can heal this world that is crippled at the moment.
Yes, Ali. And we talk about the two pillars of misguidance, and we name one of them as the tyrannical rulers sitting on the thrones of leadership around the world, the political leaders of the time. You don't have to dig too far to find their corruptions. We've pointed out some of them, and we could go on, and it would take many more shows to cover even a small percentage of their evil deeds. The second pillar of corruption is the scholars of misguidance, the scholars of the modern times that are on par and in bed with these political leaders.
Exactly.
They are their court jesters. They are the people who distort the words of the prophets and the messengers in order to control, in order to further suppress the people and give them a false understanding of their true religion. Do not go to the scholars who sit in their gold-plated mosques and temples and churches and receive their instructions from the GHQ, which is coming from the corrupt president or the corrupt prime minister sitting on the throne of leadership. They are as bad, if not worse, in terms of creating corruption in the land. And James mentioned the Boko Haram briefly,
Yes.
and I wanted to touch on that because this is a militant, extremist, Salafi jihadist movement in Nigeria, and they have created a tremendous amount of problems.
Horror, really.
Yes.
Complete horror and terror for the people. I mean, they are the root of so many heartbreaks and so much tyranny in the land of Nigeria. And where are they coming from? What is the source?
It's a great question. And actually, their full name, Boko Haram, is what the people know them by. It is Ahlul Sunnah Lid Dawa wal Jihad. Okay, and they have this extremist Salafi ideology that, if you trace it back, you will find its roots in what we call now the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And this is also a very important point to touch upon because they have the petrodollars. And what the Saudis are extremely good at doing is investing in other countries to propagate their form of Islam, which is the furthest form of Islam to the Islam of the Holy Prophet Muhammad.
It's a cancerous form of
It's
Islam.
a cancerous ideology that infects the minds of the people, and all it does is furthers the problems and creates this hopelessness and violence, and then from there people actually move further away from religion rather than finding guidance. And it's not just Nigeria and other African countries, it's all over the world. Their
really
tentacles are spread globally. And
Yes.
it is also up to the Nigerian people and the people of Africa and Europe and the world to really educate themselves about the origins of this false form of Islam that was usurped and corrupted by the family of the Saudis, and how they propagate it and create slavery in the mind
Yes.
and in the country.
I mean, they are a great culprit to really, I think that we have on our other channel, we have another channel that broadcasts to the Middle East and North Africa, and we've talked at length about the Saudi government and the great crimes committed by this. I don't even like calling them government because they have no right to be governing anyone at all. But this terrible, tyrannical family that have so many crimes that their hands have been bloodied by. And we are very much adamant that we're going to be continuing to expose them and their filthy crimes on this channel as well for our audience in Africa and in Europe and other parts of the world. So yes, Saudi Arabia has been a terrible culprit in the ongoings at the moment in Nigeria, which are based on ideology. Ideology is a very terrible tool if it's in the wrong hands and a brilliant tool in the right hands. And it's leading to the state of the world in this day and age as we see it. Now, as you mentioned, Irfan, it's not just Nigeria that sees the rotting fruit of an evil ideology. Other parts of the world are also seeing the non-working scholars and their actions coming to fruition. And we have testimonies of various believers from different parts of the world who can testify to the state of their society due to those non-working scholars. Now, we have a very dear brother called Brother Korddad Al Al-Mahdi, and we interviewed him recently where he discusses the workings of these non-working scholars and how damaging it can be to follow them. So we're going to take a quick look now at a segment by Brother Korddad Al Al-Mahdi. Let's go ahead and look at his testimony.
Beautiful. But you can say challenge that we face, you can say with the Muslim, whether it's with Sunni or Shia, right? Both. Sunni, let alone believe in the 12 Mahdis, they have problem when you say Ahlul Bayt. You know, when you say 12 Imams, it's like something that is traumatized them when you speak about 12 Imams, right? So for the Shias, you know, for the Shias in Thailand, they consider us as heretic. You know, they consider us like this is kuffar, this is heretic. This is something that you shall not marry your daughters with. This is something that you shall not marry your son with them. You shall not even mingle with them. You shall not even eat with them. And to the point that they say that sitting, you know, it's like to the point that we have these scholars in Thailand, they made a fatwa. They made a verdict. They made a verdict that whoever sees the Yamani's follower, it is permissible for you to take a wooden stick and hit their heads.
Wow. This is an official verdict from a scholar in Thailand.
From a Shia scholar in Thailand, yes.
I'm not surprised, honestly.
Yes, so believers in Thailand, if they're going to have problems, yeah, we have problems with Islamic, particularly Shias. Shias is the most, we thought that the Shia is closest to the truth. You know, it's like you already believe in 12 Imams. It should be easy for you, this transition. But it's like 360 degrees. It's not like you expect. It's like they are the one that fight you more.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes in Thailand, even Sunni, they're easy to believe in this call. You know, it's Sunni jump into this call, right? Instead of Shias.
Yeah.
So it's like something that we does not expect. We thought the Shia should believe this easy, but it seems that they are the one that fighting us more than even the Sunni in Thailand.
Yeah.
So that was Brother Korddad talking about how when the dawah or the call of Imam Mahdi is presented in general to the Shia and the Sunni Muslims and those who are adhering very strongly to their false idols of the non-working scholars, the kind of treatment that is faced, the kind of basically mockery and ridicule and insults that are heard when people out there who claim to be from Islam hear that the very figure they're waiting for, Imam Al-Mahdi, has appeared, they immediately resort to disbelief, ridicule and insults. On a smaller scale, we also see on a larger scale actual active physical assault and even attempts to murder. So it's quite bizarre, and it's as you said earlier, clearly the result of these scholars who have been pretending to be from God and establishing their authoritarian rule over the people, imposing upon them an ideology that was never from God.
Yes, exactly, Ailia. And Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, from his peace, the first of the Mahdis, the promised Yamani, who is the forerunner to the Mahdi, has a very interesting name for them, and we often say it in English, but in Arabic it's ulama ghayr al-amilin, the non-practicing scholars. The scholars who know but don't act according to that knowledge. And that is somebody who is extremely dangerous, and as somebody who Jesus called the wolf in the sheep's clothing.
Yes.
And these are people now who have been given billions of dollars with specific missionary roles to go into countries. So we were talking about Nigeria, we were talking about West Africa, and now we're going all the way to the other side of the globe in the Far East, in Thailand, Malaysia, these countries. Their tentacles, as I said before, are spread far and wide, and it is in their best interest to promulgate their version of Islam. A version of Islam that basically says, respect the ruler that God has put in charge. They take the verses of the Quran and they give it their own interpretation. And this is why they're so dangerous, because they pervert the true teaching which comes from a man appointed by God. I mean, this is what we're calling for, and this is what we get ridiculed for. We are getting ridiculed for calling the people to a man who embodies the Spirit of God. Yes, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the seal of the prophets. But God said, I will appoint a caliph upon the earth. Without this caliph, without this man appointed by God, there can be no justice, there can be no peace, there can be no prosperity. And that's what we're calling for. And that's what we're getting ridiculed for. We're saying, these leaders are corrupt. Their actions speak for themselves. Know them by their fruits. These are the words of Jesus, a messenger in Christianity and Islam who is esteemed. And he's saying this is the measure by which you identify somebody. Now you've tasted the fruits of these leaders. You have seen these scholars in action. I myself have visited Saudi Arabia, and I have been present in their mosques, and I have listened to their sermons. And all they do is what the leaders of those countries, those corrupt leaders, tell them to say.
Yes.
And they tell you lies about not to rise up, not to demand your basic human rights.
And they say a very, very fascinating claim that has nothing to do with Islam. They claim that it is part of the true religion of God to never defy the governmental authorities.
Right.
This is an innovation that was brought into Islam, not by Prophet Muhammad. It was brought in by people much after him. And further, it was actually brought into Christianity as well by Paul, who we have spoken about before, to be someone who never met Jesus Christ and who decided from his own volition that it is wrong to go against the governmental system. So we find in both religions there are people coming after the true messenger saying, don't go against the governmental system, which is very strange because Prophet Muhammad and Jesus Christ both said, if the governmental system is oppressive and persecuting their people, then surely the people must speak up. Yet they are claiming in this day and age, these scholars who, like you said, are well-fed and their pockets are filled up by the governments, by the extremist regimes, these scholars are saying it is ungodly, it is sinful to question your leader. It is sinful and wrong. You are hellbound if you go against your governmental authority. No matter how many times they oppress you, no matter how many times you are starving and go to sleep hungry, no matter how many people are sleeping without a roof over their heads or dying of drinking water, their claim is, that's all good, but don't speak out against it.
Right.
Very bizarre.
Exactly. And in the New Testament of the Bible, the scholars of the end times are referred to as a brood of vipers, and it's very apt words to describe them,
Very
because
succinct.
they really do poison. They bite and they inject their venom into your veins, and they slowly kill your soul, and this is why they're so dangerous. And no one can deny, Alia, that this is a unifying figure in every denomination of Islam, and that is Al-Hussein, the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, who is the archetypal figure who stood up against intolerance, who stood up against injustice.
Yes.
Again, where the criminal Yazid, who was, he had every single vice that you can imagine was embodied in this man. A brutal tyrant, dictator, who the Imam rose up against and unfortunately was butchered brutally in the lands of Karbala. We all know the story. Yes. So which Muslim can debate us on this issue? It is, you have to stand up. The people cannot be passive observers. They cannot say to the Mahdi what the children of Israel said to Moses when they were outside of the land that was promised to them. Go, you and your Lord, fight, we will sit here. This is not the way it works. You have to stand up. You have to get behind the man from God, who is Abu Sadiq, the riser of the family of Muhammad, and you have to obey him, and then you will be given that which you seek.
Absolutely. I think that it goes without saying that it is a two-way contract. It is not a situation where you sit quietly and idly and God himself does the work for you or for us. It is a two-way contract. It is a covenant. It is a deal. It is something where God is extending a hand towards us, but we must extend our hand back towards him. And with the right ideology, with the right understanding, with sincerity, with loyalty to God and his ideals, there is nothing that humanity cannot achieve. There is a promise of God. We will see it being fulfilled. And it's something that everyone is hoping for. Majority of the world at the moment, while they are misguided or while they are broken or suffering, are also good people, are also people who can come to God and want to. It is just that this 1% that like to hold the chains in their hands of the people, like to hold the leashes of the people in their grasp, this 1% are unfortunately overshadowing the situation right now with their ability over the institutions we see today. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be that way. And this is what we are trying to bring forward. This is what Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, and his teachings is constantly emphasizing on. He is saying that the people have to understand that supremacy belongs to God. And just that understanding is such a practical understanding. It's not just a concept that's just elusive and something you can imagine and something not tangible. It's a very tangible, practical concept that you have to, with your own hands, apply in life. It's a lifestyle, it's a way of living, it's something that has to be understood by the people. So we're here explaining that, expressing that, establishing that, and we're happy to propagate the teachings of the riser in that regard.
Absolutely, Ali, and one of the best definitions that I've heard of the word insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So we've persevered with these isms, with these leaders, with these corrupt scholars of the religion, and what has it yielded except suffering and pain and further poverty and misery? So let's look at an alternative way of doing things, guys. This is what we're calling for. Our narrative is very simple. We believe there's one God who chooses a leader, who appoints him in the land for the welfare of the people. I mean, that's as clearly as I can put this. And what we're saying is, you, the people, have to get behind the man from God in order to create the state in which you are given safety, security, peace, you and your children and your children's children, and the world lives all as one, which is, it's the dream. It's why people immigrate. People immigrate from one country to another seeking a better life, and when they arrive in that country, they find there's a whole slew of other problems on a different level, and the real solution is only one, and that is God and his messenger. God, the Father, Jesus the Son, the God, the one who sends Muhammad, and in this time it is the Mahdi who is appointed by God to rule the land and to create the justice and everything that we seek.
Exactly. Now, part of our belief system, part of our creed is that we do not ritualistically pray. We are not a people that pray ritualistically, and we'd love to delve deeper into that topic one day on this show. But we believe that God is worthy of constant prayer. Yes. God is worthy of a 24/7 hotline that we constantly are ringing to him. Not just, okay, now it's time to remember God. No, we believe that we constantly remember him by living by the ideals he has presented, by our obedience and submission to the man that he has sent from himself with the Holy Spirit within him. We believe that constantly supporting that man, believing in that man, and standing by that man is the true prayer. just as it was for the disciples of Jesus to stand by his side, just as it was for the companions in the Battle of Badr to go and fight alongside Prophet Muhammad against the corruption in the land at that time that they were facing. So our belief is that prayer is something that is a constant theme in life. However, there are times where we do love to meditate and to sit down and connect with the divine and to spiritually, how shall I put it, cleanse ourselves or connect?
Exactly, right? So dua is supplication. It is when you call out to God, you raise your hands, you put your hands together depending on the religion you come from, and then meditation is listening for God's response.
Exactly.
In order that you may know what to do. So meditation really is something that is in the teachings of all the great prophets and the messengers. And I think we have a little segment coming in on meditation.
Yes, that's right. We're going to be going now to a quick segment that has to do with meditation, and it's a little guided meditation for anyone out there who might be interested in knowing some ways that it can be done. So let's go ahead and check that out.
Good morning, everyone. We are gathering together this time to make a small meditation for us to face the day with another consciousness, with another awareness, with a different set of mind. So hopefully we do this together. I will ask you to find a place to sit that you like, that you feel comfortable. Look around. It's very instinctive. You will know which place that is. Try to roll your shoulders back, sit straight, but still comfortable. And now and then, if you need during the meditation to move a little bit so that your body feels comfortable again, you can do that, no problem. Just find a position where you still can keep this awareness, this straightness, and not go to sleep. As this meditation is an exercise for the mind that we don't want to lose by sleeping. We're going to slowly close our eyes and feel our body, feel the vibration, feel the energy within, and feel where the in connects with the out. And how does that look inside of us? If it's as defined as when we look with our eyes, when we sense the energy of the out and in, if that limit is as defined. If we feel we have a tense shoulders, we can take our shoulders to our ears and let it fall. And when we do that, we're going to do it one more time. We breathe in, and then when we let them fall, we breathe out. So we do it. We breathe in and we breathe out. We do it one more time. We breathe in and we breathe out. We can move our neck a little bit right, turn it, move it left, move our shoulders, move our hands. You can leave your mouth a tiny bit open so that all the energy that we will be releasing can just go out from your mouth. Your hands can be up for the same reason. We're going to start focusing now in our feet. We sense the energy of our feet. We cleanse that energy full of light. We make it light, light, light. We give the weight of our feet to space and we relax. We go to our ankles, we feel them, we feel inside of them. We fill them with light, with love, with hope, with faith. And we relax them. We go to the lower part of our legs. We go within them. We go up and down. We relax them. We go to our knees. We go inside our knees. We bring love and relax. We go to our thighs. We become conscious of the energy there. We release anything that has been held or held there. And we give all the energy and the weights and the atoms, we let them go. We give them to space. The same we do with our hips. We give all the weight to gravity. We relax all the organs inside our body. We go from down to up. We fill them with light. We make them light. We remind them they're light. We give the weight to space. We let it in God's hands and we relax them. We do the same with our chest, with our lungs, with our ribs, with our shoulders. We just fill them with light. We become aware of how they feel within, the width, the length, the roundness, and we give it to space. We fill them with light and we relax them. We go to the upper part of our arms. We feel them. We do a journey inside of them from the shoulders to the elbow. And we release every energy that it doesn't belong to light. We fill them with light. We make them light. And we relax. We go to the elbows. We massage our elbows in our mind. We feel them inside. We moisture the articulations and we relax them. We go to the down part of our arms. We go from up to down. We acknowledge the width. We fill them with light. And we give them to space. Our hands, we can move them. We can release anything that has been cluttered there. We can shake them. We can shake our arms as well. We put our hands again in a very relaxed position. We go finger to finger. We fill them with light. And we relax our hands. We go to our heart. We fill it with light. We let it live only in the present moment like a child that can let go of everything that happened before and be happy in this instant, forgiving, light, full of hope. We fill it with light and we give it to God. We relax. We go to our throat, we feel our neck, we massage our neck in our mind, and we acknowledge our throat. We go from up to down, we relax it, we fill it with light, give it to space, we relax. We go to our tongue. We bless our tongue that let us talk and say and relate, and we relax it. We go to our face, to all the muscles of our face. We can move our face in funny ways if we want to. And we relax all the muscles on our face. We thank our face, we thank our Lord for giving us this complex machine for us to support the Qaim of Allah Muhammad, to meet each other every day, to have another chance to become better through his example. We go to our eyeballs, we acknowledge them, their roundness, their density. We relax them inside our eyeballs. We fill them with light, we thank them, we relax them. Our lips, we relax. Our ears, we give them to space, we relax. All our head, we relax our skull. Hand, we relax our brain. We give our brain a light massage. We turn it into light. Hand, we relax it, we give it to space. Now we can take a deep breath again in this very light body, full of gratefulness to be alive in such a special time, in such a special moment, sharing our time and space with the one who God has chosen to change darkness into light. We prepare our vessel, and we notice how throughout the exercise, paying attention to this, getting busy in doing good, we just forgot of our thoughts, which come and go. If you had thoughts during the exercise, it's okay, it's just thoughts. The tip for today, I'm going to open my eyes. The tip for today is going to be that you acknowledge that those thoughts that come and go, you are the witness of it. Whether they're good or they're bad, you're just the witness of them. You don't have to own them. You don't have to worry. The moment you worry, you mix them with belief. So you don't do that. That's your only power, okay? The devil can only whisper, but cannot do unless you do. So you just acknowledge, like as if you were sitting outside your home and you say cars passing, people passing, bicycles passing. Those are the thoughts. You are not the things you see or perceive, but you can become engaged with them if you choose to. So meditation is important to be to differentiate between that we are, the perceiver, and that we perceive, and how to be aware of not to engage with that and become an empty vessel for the will of God. Once we know who has the Spirit of God on earth, then it's very easy for us to follow Him and to empty our vessels so we can understand the will of God as much, or try as much as that person has emptied himself, the Qaim of Ali Muhammad, peace be upon him, so he can receive the will of God, so he can tell us what the will of God is, so he can show us how to take care of ourselves. This was our first small meditation. Many of the things we did today we're going to be repeating in time. I wish you a wonderful day. Keep yourself aware of your body. If you find yourself troubled by thoughts, try to remember your thoughts, or try to go back again to feel your body, to relax your body, to pay attention, to bring light. Go and do good to someone else. That's another meditation. Abba Sadiq, the Qaim of Ali Muhammad, have said that happiness is hidden in the happiness of others, of our brothers and sisters. So a good way of forgetting about ourselves and our thoughts is just to make somebody else happy, and I will call that absolute meditation. So with this I say goodbye. Thank you so much for staying with me, and see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
That was our dear sister Veronica taking us through some guided meditation. We're joined now in the studio with Sister Yasmine Al Al-Mahdi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wa alaikum salam. We're very excited to be talking to you today about quite important subjects. Right before we get into those, let's take a look very quickly with you, Dr. Irfan, on meditation and the benefits of it, and why it is that we speak about it and why it is that we practice it.
Yes, absolutely. And meditation should be looked at as first and foremost a spiritual practice. So one of my favorite passages, and I think we can all agree on this from the Bible, is be still and know that I am God. And that inner stillness which Sister Veronica was trying to get us into, that state where we can hear those divine inspirations, is the essence of meditation. It is a spiritual practice first and foremost, and then secondly, it has medicinal benefits. And not to mention the Holy Prophet Muhammad. What was the Holy Prophet doing in the cave of Hira before he received the inspiration,
yes.
before he received the message. He was in quiet contemplation, in seclusion. He was meditating.
Exactly.
To all intents and purposes. And so, yes, so first and foremost, meditation is a spiritual practice. It is a way to get closer to God. And we have many narrations that say that an hour of contemplation is better than years of worship.
Exactly. It's absolutely true. It's something that we know that in order to be truthfully sincere, we have to know. We have to understand. And you cannot understand if you do not stop and think and reflect and contemplate. And that is a key part of worship, to know why it is that we worship, why it is that we do what we do, who it is that we are worshipping, what do we stand for. All of these questions can only be answered if we take that time to sit back and actually reflect upon it. And it's interesting that while it is a spiritual healing, while it is something that allows us to feel better, it also helps us feel better because physically it actually has a great effect, correct?
It has a very good effect. And let's talk about some of these medical benefits. There's been a lot of studies and research done in this area, in this field, where meditation has given benefits which exceed the medical treatments that are out there without any of the side effects. And of course, we're really big on that in the medicine of the Mahdis.
Yes.
And it is one of the things that we love to promote on the show. So there are certain emotional states. People have busy lives, they have things to do, and in the hustle bustle of life, the pressures and stresses, our body produces a lot of stress hormones, namely cortisol, which is produced by this gland that sits on top of your kidneys called the adrenal glands. And cortisol has many functions. It can make us feel awake and alert in the morning when we first wake up, which is a good thing. But if it's firing relentlessly during a busy day, it can also break down your immune system. It can raise blood pressure. It can raise blood sugar. It can suppress the immune system, which is why hydrocortisone, which comes from cortisol, it suppresses. It's an immunosuppressant. And if this happens chronically over many years, you become more prone to diseases like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, and other problems related to the cardiovascular health of the person. So having a stressful life, which we have many of us have in the West, lots of things to do, creates this BLAST mentality, which is an acronym, BLAST, which is feeling bored, lonely, angry. S stands for stressed and T for tired. When you are in this emotional state,
terrible combination.
It's a very unholy combination of things, unholy, and it puts you in this mindset where you make bad choices. This is when you crave sugars, you crave those simple carbohydrates, and you make bad decisions.
And perhaps you even treat your fellow man badly due to that.
Exactly, right? See, meditation, this is the thing. These 5 things that I mentioned, along with others, they actually narrow the gap between stimulus and response. So something happens and then you react. What meditation does is it increases that gap, which then allows you to pick the best response in that particular situation. So medically speaking, not only does meditation, and it's been proven, regular practice of meditation for 15 to 20 minutes a day, not only does it reduce your blood cortisol levels, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, but it also reduces your bad blood cholesterol.
Wow.
Now that's fascinating, right? We give medicines called statins for this purpose. Statins are medicines that reduce cholesterol in your blood, which sticks to the inside of your blood vessels, causing blockages everywhere. If it's in the brain, you become more susceptible to strokes. If it's in the heart disease. And if it's anywhere else in the body, be it your eyes, your toes, it just shuts off the blood supply. And where the blood doesn't go, there is serious problems and complications. So meditation serves a lot of health benefits. You know, there's many forms of meditation, but essentially it is becoming still and observing. And, you know, when you look in the Islamic or the Arabic world for similar things to meditation, I like this one word, which is called muraqabah, which translates to observing, right? What are you observing? You're observing your constantly nattering mind, and you are observing these emotions that are being generated as a result of these perpetual thoughts that you have during the course of the day. And we are pretty much programmed to live this lifestyle. So when you sit back and you meditate, and you don't need to be in a cave, you don't need to be under a tree, this is not a Buddhist or Hindu practice, this is a pan-religious practice, and it should be practiced, and it was by the figureheads of all the major world religions. It is about being in a calm state, breathing slowly, and focusing on watching everything around you. And when you are in that state of observation, you are calm and tranquil, fantastic things begin to happen.
Yes.
And when you develop the habit of doing this consistently, you will give up food, you will give up other things, but you won't give up meditation because of the benefits that it yields. Clearer thinking, it gives you, calmer. You just perform better as an individual,
you feel
spiritually,
more
professionally, in every way.
Exactly, and you're more detached from what is harmful for us.
Right.
Those states that we can get into, or those ideas that can be negative for us, that can then manifest into negativity in our lives. And there's no one out there who doesn't need to back off from that sometimes and just connect again to something that's more healing and more wholesome. So,
and actually, Ailia, in the future, meditation will be prescribed by the healers as a form to heal people.
Is this a prophecy?
It is a prophecy, and it will happen. So instead of giving statins and antidepressants, go meditate.
That is such a great point. I really think that we will definitely be encouraging our viewers to go ahead and practice meditation more often. We'll be having more segments with Sister Veronica, where she takes the viewer on guided meditation, which we really love to watch her do because she's so great at it. And yeah, so I'm glad that we were able to establish what we practice here as a form of worship, of the many forms. And now let's go ahead and discuss a very important subject that has to do with the theme of today's show. And that is the fact that there are tyrannical regimes out there, especially in the Middle East, that claim to be Islamic, but are the furthest thing from it. Islam is a religion that is meant to propagate no compulsion in religion. It's meant to propagate freedom of religion. However, at the moment, the governments of the Middle East are completely against that ideal. Now, we are joined today in the studio with Sister Yasmine, Sister Yasmine, you have actually gone through and experienced firsthand, you and your family, very terrible persecution in the country of Algeria. And Algeria is meant to be an Islamic state. However, the members of our religion who are Algerian testify that they were not met with any form of tolerance whatsoever. And there's been a long period of persecution of different forms that they've seen, correct?
Yes, they did. So Algeria, yes, it's built on Sharia, Islamic Sharia. So they are supposed to apply wherever it's in the book, in the Quran, and whatever they learned from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And part of the law, it says that anyone is free to believe in wherever they want.
Right.
Yeah. And so us, as believer in the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, the Algerian went ahead and they wanted to share the faith, because each Algerian were in their home, like learning about our religion or even worshipping by themselves. But when we have a different faith than our physical family, it is hard to grow or to increase in faith, you know. So they just wanted to be around people who can understand them, people who can actually share their thought, right. People who actually can sit together and talk about it and grow together. So what they wanted to do is just to be in a house together by themselves, and them as a family of Ahmadi religion of peace and light, and talk about the religion and live together on the fundamentals of our religion.
Right.
So Redwan, which is my uncle, so he called some people, and they were like, okay, maybe we can come together and we can rent a house and we can be together and live together as
a religious
family.
community, right?
Yeah,
And this is their right, isn't it?
Yes,
it's an Algerian state right. It's
exactly,
not something against
because, I
the
mean,
law.
there is nothing against people gathering somewhere and living together.
Right.
You know?
Of course.
And there is nothing illegal, and they are not going against the law in any type of form. So they did so. They came together and they rent a house, and there were like men, women, elders, children, single, you know, they just came together, all of them, and they started living together and learning about the religion together. But then they noticed that sometimes they will find a car in front of their house watching them.
Strange.
Back and forth. And when they go shopping or to the doctors, people will just look at them like weirdly and giving them looks. And then they started actually noticing that there was a car following them wherever they go. And once what happened is they were at the doctor, and then a car, it was like a van, a police van, stopped and surrounded them. There were just three. It was Radwan and a couple. And they stopped them and they just cuffed them and took them in the van. And they took them to the police station and they started questioning them. They were like, okay, what is this? We heard about your religion. What is this religion that you're believing, you know, and you're worshipping? And what is this thing that you just come together and live in the house? You know, you are strangers. You know, why would you live together?
Such curiosity. I mean, why is it their business if these people are just exercising their right to live in a house? This is part of the law. It's not going against anything.
Yeah. And then, so they were explaining what is our religion. We still believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam. It's just a different jurisprudence that we are following.
So they probably thought you were like a kind of a Shia branch of Islam.
Yeah.
How's the attitude in Algeria towards that branch?
No, Shia are kafir.
Right.
Basically.
According to them.
Yeah. According to them, yeah, they're kafir. But still, I mean, we're talking about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
It should not be an issue at all. To any true Muslim would not find that a problem if they hear someone speak of Muhammad or his family, peace be upon them all. This should not be an issue to the government or to the citizens. Yeah. Yet it clearly is one.
Yeah,
when it says in the book that my Ahlul Bayt and the Quran are the two heavy things, and they believe in the hadith of the Sakhalin, right?
They do, and it's in their own books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, so we looked up a bit your religion, and we found out that the alcohol is halal for you, and your women, your women don't wear hijab, which is really like
hypocritical.
Exactly. Why? Because our women in Algeria, they don't wear hijab.
So it's not like Iran or Saudi Arabia where you have to have a head covering according to law. It's actually fine in Algerian law not to have a head covering. Okay.
And also, the government itself gives license to sell alcohol.
That's bizarre. That is ridiculous then.
Shops, you know, you go and you just buy alcohol and go and drink. We have like bars.
So it's legal in Algeria to sell alcohol and to buy alcohol and to not wear a head covering. Yet when you are, or your community is doing so in Algeria, that is not okay for them.
Why? Because they don't benefit from it. Because when they give license, they take percentage from the income of the shop or whatever. But when we do this, they just found themselves in front of people that they can't control.
Yes.
How can we control these people if we don't have the same
ideology?
Exactly.
Right.
It's like, okay, they don't wear hijab, so we cannot tell them you have to wear hijab or something like this. Even the alcohol thing, that we have shops, people, they go to the shop, they buy, and we take a bit from them, you know, because if they don't, then we can just close the shop.
Right.
Then Islam suddenly becomes relevant.
Exactly, exactly.
So it's just hypocrisy of the highest level.
It is, and they called the women names, you know, like because they went
so you were raided, the community there was raided.
Yeah, it was raided. So after this, they gave them 2-3 days, and then they raided the house, and they took everything. They took their passports, I mean, all the documents. They took the computers, the phones. They look into drawers and personal things, and they just left. And then after a few days, they gave them, they summoned them to the court. And then when they went, they kept them for 14 hours in a small room with no chairs, and the children with them.
They took the children as well?
They took the children of them.
Whoa.
He was in the room. They were sitting there and waiting for them to be interrogated. And they weren't allowed to go out, in or out. So they didn't have food. They didn't have drink, something to drink. They were just sitting there for 14 hours. They took the women in. They were questioning them, and then they took the men and the women. They were telling. Sometimes they take the couple, and they tell the men, "Hey, so would you mind if I look at your woman, because she's not."
So they were harassing the people, and they're insulting and mocking them for our people, our brothers and sisters, for believing in a humane religion that wasn't hurting anyone, wasn't breaking any laws, and everyone was simply exercising their legal and human right. It's not as if they went against the law of the land.
No.
They were going along with it, and still they were subjected to this kind of abuse.
Yeah, so then after when they interrogated them, and it was mostly about religion, like you believe in this, you believe in this, and reincarnation, and who is your Abu Sadiq alayhi salam, and why you just left our religion. And they were explaining why. They were explaining why, with proofs and everything. Like, as a Muslim, they should be open to that.
Of course.
I mean, if I tell you that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left a will, I mean, okay, I'm curious to know what is this will.
Yes, it's not blasphemy of any sort.
No, but they didn't want to hear, because their purpose wasn't, it's not religious. Their purpose is to have control over the people of the country.
Yes. And this raid that took place, where they couldn't really put any criminal charge authentically against the community, we understand that it led to something very odd, which is it went to the Sharia court, and that there was actually a legal verdict issued at that point.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So what did they use to take them? So since they were working for the dawah, so they had footage on the computer where they were telling their stories, or they were sharing some thoughts, and they were making videos. So they used that. They were like, okay, so they are spreading this religion, they are making propaganda in Algeria. And they did it. I mean, it was their own work in their own computer. It wasn't out there anyway. And then, so they used that, and they charged them for making like an association, and we
like polytheism.
Yeah, and which they didn't. They didn't. They were gathered as a family. They weren't gathered like as to spread something. They didn't need a license for that. It's like just me and my cousin, we just rent a house and we're gonna live together. It was exactly like that, and it was just for them. They didn't have people outsider coming to the house where they were like teaching them. It was just for their own benefit.
Yeah.
So then on the 6th of June 2022, they called them again, 8 a.m. in the morning, and the prosecutor called them in the office, the adult, and they told them, are you gonna leave or quit your religion? So they answered no. They were like, okay, so you're sure about that? Because if you do, you're gonna, all your rights will drop. You don't have any right here.
So
in
just
Algeria.
to clarify, now if they do not relinquish their belief or their religion or their faith, they will no longer be held as citizens of Algeria that have rights of being a citizen.
No, they won't be citizens anymore. They won't have any right of document or
completely
anything.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and then they said no, and they were like, you're sure? And they were like, yeah, we believe in the Ahmadi religion of peace and life, and we will keep believing in the Ahmadi religion of peace and life. He was like, okay. So then they cuffed the three of them who they thought they were responsible of what was happening, which was Rodwan Fufa, Khaldin Ahmed, and Sharif. And then they took them, and the others, they had them under house arrest. So they were under house arrest, and the rest was in prison. So when they went in prison, also there was like this social harassment, you know. So when they brought them in prison, they called all the inmates, you know. They were like, here, this is like the kuffar. You know, it's like, so they let them know that these people, they don't believe in
these
the
are like
same
apostates.
thing. So it's like, hey, I give you like
inciting
violence to
exactly.
do, exactly. And they strip them naked in front of them. So you know, it's like as
complete humiliation.
Yeah, exactly. So they did that in front of those inmates, and then they put them in a cell right next a sheikh who was reciting Quran all day, all night, and calling them kuffar, and he was trying basically to bring them back to...
Did he perhaps recite the ayah, La ikraha fid din? I mean, this is something that this is the hypocrisy. That's the most sickening part of this whole equation, right? That these Gestapo tactics of watching the people from, you know, their cars, following their every step, and then just persecuting them on the basis of what? On the basis that they are adherents to the will of the Prophet Muhammad, that he said, he who follows this will never go astray. Did he mention explicitly that he who holds on the Quran will never go astray?
No.
Or recites the 5 prayers will never go astray? He said this is the basis of guidance.
And did he ever say that if you find a people that do not agree with you, or you do not agree with them, you should humiliate them and debase them and persecute them and harass them and arrest them and prosecute them unlawfully? Did he ever say that?
And do they not see the parallel between this fledgling community in Algeria that have gathered, as the Prophet gathered with Ammar ibn Yasir, with Abu Dhar, these few believers.
Exactly.
And then they took them out of their houses, and they're repeating the exact same thing to these people in Algeria.
Yeah, and they didn't stop there, because what they did is they took their pictures and they spread them out everywhere in Algerian territory, in a police station. So the people, then the agent from the police station, they would just go to people and talk to them. They were like to their friends, their old friends or classmates, and they would just go, hey, you went to school with this one, this is what he did.
So it's strategic harassment, really, isn't it?
Yes, and then because what we had after that, it's like family members, they came to Béjaïa, where they were under house arrest and where they were living as a community, and they were threatening a couple to take their children from them because they believe in a different religion than them. So they came and they were like banging on the doors, and they were telling them, we will get a paper from the government or from a prosecutor to let us take your children. And they did. They did. Somehow they had a paper that said that you can go ahead and try to get the kids. But alhamdulillah, with the help of the lawyer, we managed to drop that.
It's so chilling how far the human psyche can go to cause pain to their fellow human being, fellow brother or sister, simply because there's something unfamiliar or different going on. And the fact that these regimes and these authorities are actually aiding and encouraging and pushing forward for this kind of behavior, there is no wonder that God is angered by this land and by these ideas and activities. And we're seeing the Middle East is rampant with so much pain and devastation. It is like the natural world itself is now reacting to these kinds of actions that we're hearing from you. And this is one example that you're giving us. As far as we know, the Algerian community at that point were then... Amnesty International actually spoke up, right?
Yes,
and they said that this is completely inhumane, this is a travesty of justice. They were angered by it as well, and they spoke up about it. But unfortunately, in Algeria, living there as a believer in this religion became intolerable, correct?
Yeah, it was. And even the lawyer, when we were talking to him, I'm like, what do they have? He said the file is empty. They don't have anything against them. The file is empty. I'm like, how are we going to work with it? He said, no, it's like we will keep bringing up that there is nothing in there. And when they went to court the day of the
trial,
the judge sat down and he was like, oh, usually this is supposed to happen in a mosque, but since we're not in a mosque, let's just do it here and have a chit chat. So it's
their legal system is so ridiculous.
Talk about rule of law. I mean, it doesn't even exist.
No.
You know, and this is why the Algerian people really have to get behind these poor people who are suffering this type of treatment. I mean, you know, you talk about the Prophet Muhammad, you call yourself an Islamic nation, and then you allow the oppression of the most marginalized people in your society. The Prophet Muhammad would have safeguarded these people. You know, he used to often let people, even after conquest, walk away from the battlefield out of his mercy. You call them Rahmatul Alamin, and then you're doing this to people who profess faith in the Prophet and use his will to justify their beliefs. I mean, it's really appalling, isn't it?
And they, after the trial, they gave out the
verdict, the fatwa.
And not before the fatwa, they gave them a year of prison plus a fine. And then we had 15 days to appeal. Those 15 days were like hell because, you know, like you need an appointment to go to the chamber and to apply. It's like there was obstacles all the time. It's like they didn't want that to happen. They didn't want us to appeal.
It's a fake loophole, basically.
Exactly. But alhamdulillah, we managed to appeal. And I think after a month, if I do remember, right? After a month, we had the appeal, and it was another judge. And that judge was like, she asked in the beginning, why are we here? If it's like a religious matter, and this is a court, it's supposed to be a legal matter. And then they explained to her, and then she was like, oh, I see. And before their turn, they had a guy who was there because he hit someone with a car while he was drunk.
You know, I don't know if I should laugh or cry when you depict how their thought process is going. It's just, it's so incredibly ridiculous. It's so upside down. It's so perverse.
Yeah, and they let that guy go. I mean, he was drunk and he hit someone, and he just had to pay a fine, and he was free. And those people who didn't do absolutely anything, they didn't do anything. They were just living, eating, sleeping in the same house. What's the issue with that? Then she was like, okay, let's start. And then they went through the whole case, and the lawyer was keep pushing that there was nothing they did that was against the law. It wasn't the case. So why are we having these people here? And then so she said, okay. So she said they can go. She let them free, but they are not allowed to talk about the religion. They are not allowed to live with each other. They are not allowed to have any contact with each other if it's about the religion. You know?
Goodness.
And they had a fine. So it was after 6 months of prison and house arrest. And so that she said, as soon as you leave the court, everything, it has to be over.
And what was the result of the Sharia court's idea of what this group are?
The fatwa, they did the fatwa because now it's not, like we said in the beginning, it's not a legal issue, it's religious. So, okay, the Minister of Religion, they issued a fatwa saying that these people have to be stopped. They have to be stopped. And in Algeria, we had a history of terrorism when they were cutting heads. And cutting people and burning them and
this is the thing that we really have to understand, because in the West we can go and on the streets and give out flyers about our faith. We can promote our faith. We can go on satellite channels. But when you're talking about these countries like Algeria and North Africa in general, these people just get kidnapped and disappear off the streets.
Exactly.
And there's no one to turn to. There's no one who can actually help here.
So when you issue a fatwa from a minister.
You're basically telling the extremists,
come on,
here are your targets.
Yes.
These are their names. This is where they live.
So it's a strategy. It's a
They
tactic.
don't believe in our Islam, and they say alcohol is halal. They mentioned everything. They mentioned the Kaaba.
Was this the same person that got drunk and hit the person and killed the person on the road that was saying this?
No, it's
Probably was. Yes.
So they had everything. They had everything written in there. So these people, they believe in this and this and this, and they have to be stopped. We cannot tolerate to have people like this.
So they decided from themselves.
That's a death sentence.
Of course it is.
I'd rather be locked up. At least there's safety in prison, right? This is like a setup.
Exactly.
It is a setup.
They were trying to strategically get other people to do the job for them.
This had nothing to do with the Algerian legal apparatus. These are just some extremists that live in this random village, and they're the ones who committed these atrocities.
My goodness.
And that way they save face internationally when the worst does happen, God forbid.
So even when they came out of prison, they received letters from the taxes offices. So they closed their businesses, they closed their registers, and some of the owners' shops that they were working at, they were called by the police, telling them, "Hey, this guy who was working for you, this is what happened." So these people, when they came out of prison, they didn't have any life. They couldn't do anything.
Their life was over in Algeria.
They cannot work. Their family denied them. Their friends denied them, and they are being insulted and harassed by the entourage.
So now, at this point in the timeline, they were basically unable to live as human beings in this country, and they had to now seek asylum elsewhere. And we know that that was a long and arduous process, and we've spoken about how many of the members of this religion who were being persecuted found themselves fleeing to Turkey and hoping to find asylum there and take refuge somehow. And that in itself is a whole other saga, a whole other story of what took place.
Also, the Algerians with their passport, they cannot go anywhere.
They cannot just book a ticket to the West and find some sort of peace or solace or refuge or sanctuary there, where, as you said, Irfan, there are more human rights and they're more upheld. But they were stuck in the situation they're in.
And they couldn't go through any embassy in the sea because they will be stopped. So one of them had a travel ban. He was because he did not leave at the right time, and then after he tried and he was stopped. So they even when they were released, the eyes were still on them. They were still keeping watching them.
I have to say that I'm extremely honored right now to be able to say that we have brothers and sisters in so many different parts of the world right now.
Such courageous people.
Who are so brave and so courageous, who have upheld their beliefs despite the kind of persecution that you're describing and worse. And we know, and we'll bring you on another day, hopefully, Yasmine, where we will actually go into how it is that they had to seek refuge and asylum and what took place with them after that. It's a very painful story, but it's also extremely inspiring. And it goes to show that there can be change if you believe in that light at the end of the tunnel, which for sure our brothers and sisters in Algeria did. Why? Because of their extreme love, dedication and faith in the riser of the family of Muhammad, Abba as-Sadiq. They did not lose hope in him. They did not lose hope in God, and God did answer them. I'm excited to actually go into more of their story in the future and how it is that it played out for them. But it's so necessary to highlight the persecution that is faced by a people who are in a governmental system or in the country of a government that there is no, I would honestly say even Pharaoh himself in the time of Egypt, in the time of Moses, was perhaps more lenient with his people than we see the governments in the Middle East being in this day and age.
So true, Ailia. And it's like that expression in English, shooting fish in a barrel. They have nowhere to go. You locked all the exits. And it is very reminiscent of that fact. But Moses did come. Eventually he came and he led his people out of Egypt, and now Abba as-Sadiq is here. The riser has come, and he will lead his people out of the same kind of oppression that is existing in this day and age.
Exactly. Part of our missionary work, part of our belief is to spread the message, but to explain it, because the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad said something very, very beautiful. He said that the believers in this religion are companions of the evidence, which means that we are a people who take facts and we find evidence for them, and we actually believe in them based on logic and common sense, because it's all, truth is something that you can not deny. There is nothing in it that you can find holes in it, or it's weak, or it's fragile. It's actually very concrete, strong, and airtight. And because we find historically there is a very clear pattern of people seeing God, believing in God, wanting to stand by God, and yet being faced by opposition and tyranny, from the likes of Nimrod in the time of Abraham, to Pharaoh in the time of Moses, to the rabbis and the priests and scholars and the Roman Empire in the time of Jesus. And then you go to the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, and the terrible pain and suffering that was faced by his people due to the scholars and the priests of the paganism religion that was being followed in the time, the idols of sticks and stones. In this day and age, the idols being followed are, in fact, those non-working scholars who the people are adhering to in places like Algeria, like Nigeria, and we're going to be going into other examples in the future. So do stay tuned to rise up every day with us here on this channel and hear the teachings of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the creed of humanity first. This was an absolute pleasure having you here, Yasmine.
Pleasure's for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yasmine.
Thank you for joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow with another episode. And until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.